Welcome to Less Clutter, More You, a podcast that travels with you through the journey of letting go and creating order so you can start making more room for what matters most. Together, we'll go beyond the basket to start unlocking your next level of embracing your physical and mental space through mindset shifts and action steps. I'm your host, Maggie Britton, professional organizer, clutter coach, wife, and mom of four, and I am so glad you are here. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to bring back some interviews, and our first interview of 2024 is Leah Davidson of Leah Davidson Life Coaching. And Leah and I have been in each other's online orbits for the past 3 years or so. And Leah has always had a focus on helping people build resilience, and that is her podcast that you definitely need to tune into. But beyond that, and over the past couple of years, her focus has really grown and has been very exciting to follow because she's digging really deep into the nervous system. And every time I hear Leah talk, I know that her message is so important for all of you who are working through clearing your clutter, getting organized, and just trying to simplify your everyday, because there is so much that the nervous system is playing a role in how the clutter is affecting you mentally, physically, how you're approaching it, how you're working through it, and how you are staying on top of it. And I just want to share a few points of percentages that are mind-boggling of how much clutter is creating stress in homeowners, in moms particularly. And so it says 84% of Americans. Now, Leah is in Canada, and I wonder, that's a whole other thing we can go down to if there's any comparison on clutter in American homes versus Canadian homes. But based on the number of professional organizers that I know in Canada, my guess is it's pretty similar. But 84% of Americans, mothers in particular, as I said, have higher levels of stress than those living in well-organized homes. And this stress is coming from their environment, which Leah is going to touch upon that. And so the fact that the clutter of our homes is creating the stress, that is when, if someone's going to call me, they can identify that it's the clutter at first, that's something that's starting to creep up. They are starting to put the connection together that their home, their space is not helping their stress levels. It's just increasing it. So Leah, on all of those notes, I would love for you to just say hello, give a little rundown on how, because Leah also is a speech pathologist, and how you knew that between working with your speech pathology clients, your life coaching clients, you knew that the key to really making that shift was diving into the nervous system, and we'll take it from there. So Leah, give us a little hello. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. And yes, I am in Canada. I'm in Toronto, Ontario. And I can almost guarantee that clutter is just as much of a problem in our Canadian provinces, in our Canadian homes, as it is in the US. So I am Leah Davidson. And as you mentioned, I am a life coach. I'm also a speech-language pathologist, which is really where everything started, because I have worked for the past 25 years in the area of traumatic brain injury. And so really learning about what happens when things go wrong with the brain, how to rewire, how to reconnect. And all the tools that I was teaching, I work specifically in an area called cognitive communication. So it relies very heavily on your cognitive skills, which as I have worked with people, I saw that there is such a role of the mindset skills, as well as everything sort of hinges upon our nervous system. And without embracing and learning about our nervous system, so many of the strategies that we're trying to use cognitively, the thoughts we're trying to change, the strategies we're trying to implement, they don't stick as well when we're in a dysregulated nervous system. So that's why I really have shifted, and it's my biggest passion and mission to tell people about their nervous system, help them understand their own personal nervous system, because it makes an absolute difference in their life.
That's amazing. So I think the nervous system, even us just saying the nervous system, da 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 da. I don't want to say it's new. We've had a nervous system for all mankind, right? It's just that now we know more about it and we know how to make it work for us. So can you give anyone who's like, what is this chatter of the nervous system? Because the last time I learned about the nervous system was in high school biology. So could you give a little rundown of what does it mean?
Yeah. Right. And I think we do know we have a nervous system from our high school biology classes. We just don't understand its role in our life. And over the past few years, I think the nervous system has taken center stage because we're starting to understand what it can do for us and what can actually happen if we're not taking care of it. This is why we've seen, this explosion of mental and physical health challenges, all related to the nervous system. So the easiest way to think of your nervous system is it's how your brain and your body connect and communicate with each other. We've often think of them as very separate, but the nervous system is that communication channel. And it has several roles. The nervous system, the main role is to work behind the scenes. It's taking care of your survival. It's running your breathing, your heart rate, your digestive system, your temperature control. It's doing everything. And its job is to keep you alive. And what it actually does is it is constantly scanning for safety and danger. And this is why clutter is so interesting, because what the nervous system does, and it's all on an unconscious level. This is not a cognitive. This is not a decision. This is just what it's doing. It's scanning for your safety and your danger. It looks at your environment and it scans all the things, your five senses initially, things you can touch, you can see, you can hear, and it's picking up on cues to decide if there's safety or danger. It scans what's going on inside of you. So it's listening to your heart rate, your stomach gurgling, your thoughts, and what's going on between us relationally, that vibe that we have. Based on those three things, it decides if you are safe or you are in danger. Now, this is not actual safety or danger. This is perceived safety or danger. And it's usually based, it takes all that information, it combines it with lots of your past experiences, lots of your past learning, and it will assign you a physiological state. If it deems that you are safe, then you kind of don't really notice a difference. You're put into what I call team resilient. And that is where you just sort of go about your day. You feel good. You feel confident. You're getting things going. You can be curious and compassionate and you can communicate, and your thinking skills, like they are on board. Your CEO who is running your show, she is got it all going on. But if it scans danger, then the first thing it's going to do is it's like, I got to protect you because you're in danger. Not necessarily true danger, but even if I perceive danger. And so it ups your metabolism. It gets you ready to fight or flight. It gets you in this protection survival mode, what I call team hyper. That's the first line, where you are ready. You can be a little bit filled with energy because you're ready to go to protect yourself. If you can't protect yourself, or if you are spending so much time in this team hyper area, expending all your resources, or if the nervous system senses extreme danger, then it wants to conserve energy. So it will completely shut you down and bring you down into a state of disconnect where you are shut down, hypoarousal. I call it team hypo, where you can conserve energy. So essentially, it's scanning, safety, danger. Safety, you go to team resilient, you keep going. Danger, you're first going to go into a hyper-aroused state. Too much danger, you're going to go into a hypo-aroused state. The important thing to know about these states is when you're in hyper or hypo, you pretty much lose access to your thinking skills, to your CEO, as I call her. So that means your thinking, your communication, your judgment, your decision-making, even your feelings. You are going to have limited access. Everything that you do will be flavored in either a hyper state or a hypo state. So understanding what state you're in is important because it sort of sets the path to what your thoughts, what your feelings, what your actions are, and it limits your ability to access your CEO, who is the one that we want to be making the choices in our life.
Thank you for that introduction, Leah. And I just wanted to point out and circle back to a few things that you mentioned. And one was the perceived sense of danger. Was that the word that you used, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that you are in danger. It's not that, when you walk into that closet, it doesn't mean that that pair of jeans that no longer fit are going to come at you and take you down, right? It can feel like that. And I know that it can, and I know that it does feel that way for so many of my clients. But it also doesn't mean that what you're feeling isn't true, right? Like, so as Leah was saying, now your ability to use that CEO, that one that's able to make decisions, that all of a sudden starts to become less available to you. And I know, and I have seen that, let's say you are in that closet. Let's take you back into that place. And that breathing, as Leah was saying, starts to pick up the heart rate. And there is a sense of, take me out. I don't feel safe. Mm-hmm. Remove me from the situation, which, when it comes to clutter is exactly why it becomes a point of like you're a freeze state, right? And you got to get out. So as Leah was saying, like it's in your body and it's connected to your thoughts. And so Leah, can you talk a little bit about, because those thoughts are now becoming part of how your body is feeling, that sense of tense and wanting to get out. Can you talk about at what point does the nervous system separate the thoughts and the physical reaction to the sense that you aren't safe?
Yeah. So really the nervous system is functioning pre-thought, pre-cognition. And your nervous system is, think of it started developing in utero. And you are susceptible to like your mother's nervous system. And so you're picking up. And then throughout your life, like thousands of impressions have shaped your nervous system all the way along, which is why we all have a different nervous system, which is why we all respond differently. Somebody could experience one thing as being dangerous, whereas somebody else is like, what's the big deal about that? And it has to do with their nervous system, with their past experience, with their past learning, all on this precognitive level. So the nervous system assigns you this state. And then based on the state, that is going to flavor all the thoughts that you have. So if you walk into a situation and you sense danger or it's perceived as being dangerous, then your nervous system gets activated and your thoughts are likely going to be thoughts tinged with this hyper-aroused state. So they're going to be anxious. They're going to be worried. They're going to be ruminating. They're going to be overthinking. They're going to be spinning around. They're going to be thoughts of nervousness and panic, even with some aggression and defensiveness. And that's because the nervous system is providing that flavor. Now, if you are more on the extreme of hypo, then you may look like, oh, I'll never get this done. It'll be hopeless and helpless and sad and depressed. What's wrong with me? And filled with shame. And then, of course, we get the added bonus of waffling between the two or having both of them at the same time, which is that freeze state, which is just like I feel hopeless and helpless and I'm in a state of panic and defensiveness and all those things. So your thoughts are really going to be, in a sense, dictated by the state of your nervous system, which is why it's not always helpful to tell people, let's just change your thoughts. Let's just change the way you're thinking about the clutter initially, because we can change your thoughts, but if you're still activated, you're going to be changing your thoughts to reflect the same kind of flavor. What we need to do first is we need to learn how to regulate ourselves. Bring ourselves to that safe zone where we realize that we are safe and we have access to our thinking skills. We can come up with thoughts that are going to help serve us because the flavor of our nervous system is one that invites in connection and communication and curiosity and all those things. So that's kind of why the nervous system really has to be our starting place, because it is guiding the direction that we're going to be going in.
I see this show up all the time. Our in-person service, it's a done for you service. And done for you service doesn't necessarily mean done for you because that is some fancy thing that we're just doing it so you don't have to. Yes, that's great if that's the case. But a lot of it is we aren't asking our clients to put themselves into these states alone, because when they don't have that communication to work through it or to reset, that's when things don't progress and the clutter stays as is. As you were saying that, you really pinned it on that waffling, that back and forth. And I think a lot of people who are listening right now are raising their hands and saying, yes, sometimes I do feel this way and that way, but it's a little bit of a combination. Yeah. It's back and forth. And so when we're working with clients, whether it's in person or online, I think how you said, that starting with the nervous system and recognizing how much that plays a role in getting to the next step and starting and taking the next step forward. It's fascinating, and I can't wait to continue to learn from Leah. So if someone, let's say that they're home, they said, you know what, I'm going to work on this space today, whatever that might be, a drawer, a shelf, a garage. Maybe they've brought in a family member to help them. And they are starting to recognize that their nervous system is off-kiltered. What is something that they could do in that moment? Is it something that they should be starting prior to becoming into that space? And let's start with something that they can do before. Let's start there. Before they get into the space, What would you recommend?
So there's a couple things. And the first thing I do want to remind the listeners, in case you're sitting there recognizing yourself and going, oh no, what's wrong with me? This is your biology and your physiology. This is not your fault. This is not a decision that you're making. We all have a nervous system and we are all going to be dysregulated at different times. So one thing I love about inviting the nervous system lens into everything we do is it removes all the shame and the blame. It's sort of like, your nervous system created adaptations for your survival since the beginning of you. And it did this brilliantly in order for you to survive in your environment with your exact experience throughout your life. And it just hits a certain point that at times, as we get older, we start to realize, hey, I don't know if this adaptation is serving me anymore. I may want to change it. So I just really love to emphasize that with people, because I know a lot of times people will have some shame or they'll have a lot of blame involved there. And I want to take that off the table. There's no shame. There's no blame. This is just the
Absolutely.
way your biology happened. And, now we're going to look at it and see what we can do differently. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I like to approach it. It sounds a little bit silly. Like I invite people to think of it like you're joining the nervous system resilience sports team. And when you join this team, just like with every sports team, there's a couple of things you're committed to. You're usually committed to having some fundamental baseline of good sleep hygiene, nutritional hygiene, exercise routine, just some fundamental basics for your pillars of your health. But then more importantly, what happens is you need to come to practice. And we usually have practice on a daily basis. And in this practice is where you start learning how to get the fundamentals, get the routines going. You're doing the stretches and learning the drills. We also teach you some specific skills that you could use when you go to the game. So you have to have the training. You have to on a daily basis. Not only is it important to reset your stress cycles on a daily basis, but to build up that capacity, that resilience that you're going to need. And then you go to the game. And when you're in the game, that is when you're going to be using all the tools that you've been learning in practice. It is not helpful to go to a game and then be in the thick of it and turn and go like, what am I supposed to do here? Does anybody have an idea? Like you want to have these tools practiced over and over and over so that when you're standing in that closet in the game, you know exactly what resources to pull in. And then thirdly is what I call the debrief. This was always my least favorite part when my kids were playing sports is I wanted to get home after the game and the coaches always wanted to sit down and go over what went well, what didn't go well. Well, that is an important piece because that's how we learn what works for us because what works for you is not necessarily going to be what works for me. There's no cookie cutter approach. So if we look at the nervous system like that, then that means that on a daily basis, you are going to want to be doing some things as part of your daily routine to nourish and take care and befriend your nervous system so that you can have all the tools at your fingertips when you go in to play the game.
Love that. That's perfect. And such a great visual because I think that's easier to apply it to your personal life. And if you're ever listening to Leah and anything that whether it's her podcast or in your emails, whatever it is, Leah always reminds her community that it doesn't mean that the hard stuff's not going to come up. It's just how prepared are you when the hard stuff shows up? And that's exactly what Leah was just saying. When it's not hard, you still have to put the work in. You still have to train that nervous system and strengthen it so when it gets hard, you have something to fall back on. You're not, struggling to find what should I be doing? What's going to help me right now? It's almost with that practice, knowing that something's going to come up and you're going to put it in, the game's coming up, that you're just preparing yourself and you're giving yourself those tools to use when it is hard. And so remember that we're not saying that this isn't going to fix, this isn't going to make something, you figure out your nervous system and you're never going to be up against anything the rest of your life. This just means now you have a set of tools. You've got the playbook.
Right.
To fall back onto and somewhere to start, something to rely on when it is hard and it feels like you are in the state of freeze.
Yeah. And your nervous system, it's very similar to like eating every single day or bathing or brushing your teeth. It's something that you're going to have to do every single day for the rest of your life. I say to people as they're learning it sounds kind of scary when you don't have the context, but hundreds of times a day, you need to regulate your nervous system. But hundreds of times a day, it just takes a few seconds to do it. It's building up the awareness to notice when you're getting activated and then to do something about it. And we do that hundreds of times a day. And as we continue to do that, we start teaching our body what it's like to be in a regulated state. And then that becomes more of our natural set point where we crave to go back there. So we push ourselves or we invite ourselves to get back to that regulated state. So it's like a cumulative effect. It's the same as going to the gym. You're not going to go to the gym for one session, do one workout, and then go stand in the mirror and say, where are my muscles? Like that's the same thing with the nervous system. But if you go to the gym every single day, in 6 months' time, you'll stand in the mirror and you'll be like, dang, girl, you look good. And you can see the muscles and I feel stronger and I have more energy and I just feel so much better overall. That's the exact same thing with the nervous system, is that initially you may be like, oh, is this really helping? And then 6 months down the road, you'll have an interaction with somebody and you'll just recognize you handle it so much differently. Or you'll walk into your closet and you'll just very casually start decluttering some things and moving things over without getting dysregulated. That's the perk when you are dealing with it every single day.
100%. And I talk a lot about the decluttering muscle. So now if you have a decluttering muscle that's getting stronger through your work at the nervous system gym, you are going to be set up for just that much more of a potential for progress. And maybe it's 10 minutes one day, and then you take a minute, you're checking in, you're becoming more aware of how you're feeling. What does that nervous system, what's happening? Right. And then joining those tools together is a really good playbook that I think that we need to combine. And
right, I think so.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So let's say, Leah, you have this playbook. You are becoming more aware of what to pay attention to. You're finding yourself in a state of dysregulation. What is the next best step? Where should you start to reset?
I like to teach people a 3-step process that they can use when they're in the moment. And it really is a way to just instantaneously try to reset and regroup. And once you reset and regroup, then you can make a decision of what you're going to want to do. So I remember in the fall, my husband and I did a big decluttering because we just became empty nesters. And we were decluttering. And as much as, nervous system resilience is my jam, I could feel myself getting dysregulated because multiple reasons. The environment, it was very overwhelming with lots of stimuli. It was very emotional because I was going through all these things for my 5 kids and having to make decisions, what to keep, not to keep. So I felt myself getting overwhelmed frequently. So my 3-step process is this. The first thing is you need to establish that you actually are safe. Because like we said before, your nervous system doesn't recognize between actual danger and perceived danger. So even though I am standing in my office surrounded by just stuff, papers, books, like nothing's going to jump out and harm me, my nervous system was sending messages of danger. So I had to stop. I put my hand on my heart. That's just like a comforting thing. And I asked myself, am I safe? In this moment, in this environment where I'm at, am I physically, empirically safe? And the answer is obviously yes. I'm standing in my home, in my office, and there's papers. I am completely 100% safe. I'm not asking if something could happen or something has happened in the past. I'm asking myself in this moment. So yes, I am safe. And it's really important that you ask and answer that question because your cognitive brain needs that. Because if your brain thinks that it's in danger at all, it's never going to allow you to let it go. Now, the second step is asking the question, do I feel safe? And that's where I go into my body because even though logically I know I'm standing in my office and I feel safe, my body has started to react as if I wasn't safe. It's starting to get overwhelmed. It's starting to get a bit panicky. My chest, my heart is pounding. And so the answer to do I feel safe is no, I don't feel safe. My body, for some reason, thinks like it is under attack. And so I want to just get in my body and notice, oh, that's interesting. My heart's going crazy. My stomach is gurgly. I don't feel safe. I've got a lot of tension. So I've asked, am I safe? Yes. Do I feel safe? No. And those questions are actually interchangeable. Sometimes I might notice the tension in my body and be like, oh, that's interesting. I've got a lot of tension in my body, but am I safe? Yes, I am safe. So once I've asked and responded to those two things, the third thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just relax my body. Literally relax my muscles. My favorite thing to do is what I call the rag doll, where I just go limp and just drop down. And the reason you do that, a body that is relaxed cannot house stress. It's impossible. And if you don't believe me, go try and yell at your children in a relaxed body. Like go into ragdoll mode and try to yell. It's virtually impossible. You have to have tension in your body to yell at your kids. Not that I would know or anything, but you have to have tension in
I'm
your body
taking
to yell at
notes.
your kids. No judgment there. So am I safe? Do I feel safe? Relax your body. When you are relaxed and you're safe, the combination is important. We have to have safety and we want to have that relaxed body. When we have both, we then invite our CEO online. And then she can come online and she can make the assessment. Leah, you know what? You're standing in your office. You're totally safe. You're now nice and relaxed. But you know what? You have been decluttering for a couple hours now. Why don't you go take a break? Why don't you go for a walk and get some air outside? Because you know that makes you feel better. Why don't you, or maybe the decision is you feel relaxed again? Why don't we set a timer and we're going to work for another 10 minutes? So you start being able to get creative. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? And when I was decluttering with my husband, sometimes it was, we need to go for a walk. We need to take a break. We need to get some food. We need to do something to energize, or maybe we just need to shut the door and we'll come back to this next weekend. My CEO can help me make those decisions, not from a place of panic and survival, but from a place of, common sense and what is in my best interest for me physically and mentally. That's what we want to do in those moments.
That's huge. And just this week, we were working with a client in her kitchen, and our process is when you're working with us, we are tackling bigger spaces, right? Because you have the support, you have the team there to make a bigger impact rather than maybe that smaller space than you're working with on your own. And, we got to a point, our client was working with us and we only do it in the small little shifts. And she said, okay, what do you want me to do next? And I said, I know that you have to get ready. The only thing I want you to do right now is go take your shower. That is it. Don't think of another thing. Step away from the kitchen. I mean, just as you were saying, that environment, just by visually seeing the clutter, not even touching it, not even yet making the decisions on it yet, but just by seeing it can make someone feel unsafe. And so just this week we did that. The next step was you're going to take a shower. The week before that, I received a message from someone who decided to tackle a space larger than maybe she was ready for on her own. And I received a message in the panic, high anxiety state. What do I need to do? And I don't think that she was ready for my answer because I said, what you're going to do first is go outside and put your feet on the ground. Go stand in the sunlight, go put your feet on the ground, and then come back in, and then let's start from there. Because as you were saying, whether you're safe or not, if you're not feeling safe, how are you going to get to that next space, that next set of progress?
That's right. That's why we need to do both. Because so often we try to convince ourselves that we're safe. Logically, we're safe. And that's the first step. But your body is the lie detector. If your body doesn't feel safe, then what happens is it doesn't matter how many times your brain tells you or somebody else tells you, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe. And the body's like, I don't care. I don't feel safe, which is why you need to get into your body and then physically relax your body. That relaxed body sends the message back to the brain. Okay, body feels safe now. Okay, I feel safe now too. Both are in alignment. And now you can confront all the stressors in your life in this relaxed body. And then you're going to be able to invite your CEO to come on board and help you out.
We might all just have to start decluttering in the ragdoll state. maybe maybe my team is going to just start working. I mean, we're in a relaxed state. We're good to go, but maybe we're just all going to start just dropping our shoulders, opening our clenched fists, and just, that could be a really quite a visual.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, that rag doll does wonders. She is always, I know last year I was traveling with my family and, my kids are familiar with some of the work that I do. And one point, it was, a high stress and we were stopped at a corner and just hanging out near a fountain. And I just sort of leaned over and was relaxing. And my daughter-in-law came up to me and she's like, "Are you doing the rag doll?" And I'm like, I am. And she's like, "Are we all stressing you out?" And I'm like, "No, you guys aren't stressing me out, but my body is noticing some tension."
I love it.
And it feels so much better. So just in the middle, we were actually in New York, in the middle of New York City, I'm ragdolling it just because I did feel that overload. I've got my family. There's so much commotion going on. I was tired. And that just gives you a little bit of boost. Reminded myself, I'm totally safe here, Leah. And my next question is, what do I need? What do I need to nourish myself? And maybe it is, a break, a drink, a sit down, whatever it is, or to step away. Like you said, go stand in the sunlight, do something. But often that rag doll, it just allows us to feel so much better in the moment and then be able to make the next step of what is going to help us most.
And I think that tool is something that if you're listening to this and maybe it's not a time that you're feeling this increased stress, but maybe you're working with your children, I'm sure all of this is so useful because a lot of times our children don't understand what's happening. They haven't yet tapped into what's happening to their body and their thoughts when they're in that state of stress. So those are really useful tools, not only for yourself, but when you are working through something as simple as, it's time to put the laundry away, can feel overwhelming and unsafe.
Yeah.
And so those little things that we can do for ourselves and for others is so helpful. And I really appreciate, Leah, you sharing that with us.
Yeah. And our children learn about their nervous system directly from us. It is through co-regulation. They are watching, and it's even a precognitive thing. It's co-regulation. This is how our children learn how to regulate themselves through us. And that's why not only do we need it to be the best parents that we can be, but we need it so that we're passing along and we're teaching and we're showing a healthy role model of what it is to be regulating ourselves.
That's interesting because something that we do is body doubling. And this is just another thing that's been happening since the beginning of mankind. It just now has a term, right? And I have talked about it on my podcast, in my emails, in my community of the power of body doubling. And I can see now that just having somebody else in that space who is in that regulated state can help to ease your sense of stress. And so that's very interesting.
It's one of the number one go-to ways is to co-regulate with somebody. It is how we first learn nervous system regulation. And then throughout our life, we are wired to connect, partly because of our need for co-regulation. And that is why when we go through difficult times or we're feeling overwhelmed, it can be very helpful to have someone who is very, very grounded. Simply their presence of grounding, even if they say nothing or do nothing, their presence is co-regulating, and our nervous systems communicate with each other and they can send each other messages of safety.
Absolutely. It all makes so much sense. And it really, really, I think, plays a big role in the process of decluttering and getting organized and just taking those actions step by step and having the tools and the support surrounding you. So, one thing I want to ask guests from your point of view in terms of the nervous system, and you already shared you were clearing out items now that 5 of your children have moved on and you are simplifying and downsizing. But was there ever a point, whether it's something physical clutter, mental clutter, calendar clutter, sentimental clutter, whatever it may have been, was there ever a point that you could pinpoint that it was hard to let go, but when you tapped into regulating that nervous system, that it allowed you to get to that point of letting go? And what was it?
Yes, for all of those things, everything. If I think of sort of adaptations that I had throughout my life, one was definitely veering on the side of that perfectionist quality, not wanting to put anything out there that wasn't perfect, holding myself to such a high standard to the point that I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't move ahead. And ironically, it has been my work with the nervous system of teaching people about the nervous system, how I've been able to let that go. Because I realize, like, if I'm going to wait until I understand everything perfectly, or I have the perfect business set up or the perfect way, and I never make mistakes, I will never put my work out into the world. And so I just had to say to myself, I do my best. It doesn't have to be perfect, good enough, but it is more important that it gets out there than it is to be perfect. So letting go of that expectation has been hard for me, but the results have been incredible, because the more I put out there, the more I am willing to learn and make mistakes and grow from that. And the more people I'm able to reach, and to have the feedback from people that are saying things like, something that you shared changed my life, or changed my direction, or has helped me in my business, or helped me raising my kids. And I'm just blown away by that and thinking, I'm so grateful that I didn't wait until it was perfect, because I would still be waiting. I wouldn't be doing this interview. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't have a business. I wouldn't be making changes in my own life, in my own relationships, because I was holding myself back and staying so small because I needed it to be perfect. So just letting that go has been hard, but it has been so rewarding. And it's ongoing. Like, who's kidding who?
Sure.
I'm working
Absolutely.
on it all the time. Yeah.
We just build up that muscle, right? So that it gets a little bit
Right.
easier
I'm
the
building
next
my
time.
muscle. That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And you apparently made room for a lot of beautiful things by letting go of something that was holding you back. So thank you for sharing that.
That's right.
Is there anything else before we wrap up that you would want someone who's just starting out in the world of the nervous system to know? And I believe that you have something coming up that is available to someone who is just starting out in the world of the nervous system. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, because my belief is your nervous system is the foundational. It's everything upon which we build. I have a training that I offer for people who want to do a deep dive, an immersive dive, or if they're coaches or professionals who want to integrate the nervous system into their work. I have a training called the Advanced Training. But I also just am opening up. I don't know when this episode will air, but as of April 1st, I have opened up a monthly membership. It's called the Connections Membership. And it is for people who want to start to get to know their nervous system. And in the membership, it has, an essentials course that you go through. Then there's monthly new learning, there's coaching calls, and there's community. And the community call that we have is so important because we heal in connections. We need each other. That's probably why so many of your people really do better when they have the support of a community, when they have you coming in. It's not just an extra pair of hands, it's the nervous system support and the healing that we need. So I have that membership. The doors are open until March 31st. So again, I'm not really sure when your episode airs, but if it is airing later, reach out to me if you've heard this podcast and we can make some arrangements. But it really is my mission to help as many people get to know their nervous system, because your nervous system is talking to you all the time. And it has such important things for you to hear. You just need to learn the language and learn to understand what it's saying. And so that's what this Connections membership will help you do.
Amazing. Thank you, Leah. Keep sharing that message. Keep making more room for your message, because it is a well worth one to hear. So thank you, Leah, for being here. And all of Leah's information, how you can learn more about her membership, will be in the show notes. So make sure you check that. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. If after listening you have gained just a boost of motivation to start thinking about your clutter and taking action to clear it, then I would love for you to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode, and leave a rating and review so we can continue to grow and inspire others just like you. In the meantime, I'll be here cheering you on your next step forward with living with less clutter and more you.